Greetings, brothers and sisters. All right. I said I wasn't going to do this anymore, but this guy is he's really getting onto my nerves. Okay. Myles, brother, I don't know what to tell you, but I'm going to have to tell you something. Now, this is going to be a video reacting to basically three race betas. That's right. That's what they are. We're going to listen to what they actually have to say, and then we're going to explain what is actually going on. Because there's in a whole lot of stuff and taking it out of context, and they're trying to say that, okay, Adventists believe this and Adventists believe this. This person said this, so henceforth, Ellen G. White believed this. Yeah, because she was alive when he was alive. So she believed whatever it is that he's saying, that's what she believed. Whatever it was that anyone was saying when she was alive, that's what she meant to say too. Nothing can be farther from the truth. I mean, just listening to that, you say, my goodness gracious, where do these people come from? I'll tell you where they come from. They come from Adventism. That's where they come from. This is what happened when you leave. No sense makes sense. And all nonsense is perfectly sensible to these people. But anyways, we're going to listen to them and we're going to give them their due. We'll let them spout their nonsense and we'll tell you what the Adventists actually believe, not what they say they believe. Now, they should know better, but obviously they don't. So, without further ado, let's just jump right down into it. Because, oh my goodness, it's getting on. It's getting on to me. It's getting on to me. Anyways, alrighty, here it is. Let's just begin, shall we?
So we're going to get into the details of this, how he was influenced by Dr. Marsh in the 1950s and the tensions that were rising within the SDA Church due to these statements. Adventist apologists want you to think that we're the clueless critics, liars who are misrepresenting what she said, haven't read her fully, making connections where there are none, and so on. But is this the case? Tonight, we're going to see who has and hasn't done their homework and who is being honest about the facts and who's simply parroting the script that they have been fed by the Adventist industrial complex. Okay? Because one side is actually looking at the full scope of things, the evolution, no pun intended, of how this has changed over the years and how the 1950s was a pivotal time, but the Adventist Church was not born in the 1950s. So remember that. With me to discuss, always a pleasure to have these two guys here with me. They are not strangers to the show. Pastor E.J. Thunder Lorston, CMB the Ambassador. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. How are we doing?
Blessings, bro. Doing well. It's good to be here with you again, and of course with CMB, the wonderful brothers
Always.
in the Lord I love and love to work with. I love to have these discussions and conversations with about biblical, theological issues, and of course issues surrounding Adventism contrasting with historical Christianity. It's good to see you all again, brothers.
Always stoked to have you guys here. How you doing, CMB?
Doing great, brothers. I'm glad to be here tonight. What's up to everybody in the chat? I see some people from all over the place. I see Joe.
Alrighty. So basically, we have we got two race betas and one that he doesn't know what he is. Anyways, you have CMB, the ambassador. I guess that's his handle name. And then you have a Pastor Thunder, a liar, son. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good. I want you to really sit back and listen to what they have to say. I really want you to sit down because I don't have any problems with them actually, because the Bible says this, that whether you preach against God or you preach for God, you're still preaching about God. So you're getting the message out there. And I always I would have to say this is my personal thing. I prefer to listen to people like this. Because they tell you things, there are people that really sit down and go into it. And they're digging for things that they're looking for. And anything that, whenever they find something that they're looking, oh, look, listen to what she said here. Listen to what she said there. We as Seventh-day Adventists don't read enough our own literature to know these things. And when people like this come up and then they tell you, well, Ellen White said this, Ellen White said that. Listen to what she said. Can you imagine? She said that. Have mercy. Oh, racist. Have mercy. And they really put it out there strong and hard, man. It's just, yeah. And you leave Adventist like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Because you see, today we're Trinitarian. We can't defend ourselves. But I ain't no Trinitarian. Okay, that's right. With that said, let's just jump right down. We can skip all this and we jump right down into the nitty-gritty.
We're going to start by reading a few comments, though, folks.
All right.
Before we get into a presentation that CMB is going to give, I want to respond to a few of the comments on the recent video I uploaded for people to see themselves some of these common defenses, as well as a quote from SEA pioneer Uriah Smith regarding Ellen White's amalgamation statements. Now, we're going to be looking at more quotes tonight than just the amalgamation quotes because there are plenty. But I want to look at that before we get going as well. And like I said, after that, CMB is going to take the reins. He's going to present. We're going to look at those quotes as well as a number of others. And then we'll discuss some of the historical development as well that led to the current defenses that the SDA Church uses. So with that being the case, let's look at the first comments.
Let's get it.
This guy has two comments. Anthony, he says, spiritual things
To
are...
give you some context, this is about another video that he made regarding the same thing, the amalgamation statement that Ellen White made in her writings. These are people that's actually defending it, but to the best of their ability, they're trying to defend it. Like I say, it's hard to defend Adventism being a Trinitarian. It is almost impossible to do. It's almost impossible to do. But we'll see what the brother had to actually say.
They're spiritually understood. If one carefully read the statement pertaining to the amalgamation of man and beast, one would understand aright what the statement is conveying. We all know that the coupling of a human and a beast cannot bring forth an animal nor a human, neither a creature being part human and part beast. Well, one thing I'll say here is I didn't even get into that aspect in my video. So I expected all of them to show up again with the script and just anytime this topic's mentioned, what are the talking points? Bump, 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 just throw them out. I didn't even bring up creating a hybrid whatever in the video. So he's just throwing out one of the common expectations that people are going to say, which we're going to get into this tonight to see if that is what she's actually saying. But then he continues. Again, the idea of whites having their congregation for whites and blacks having their congregation for blacks is misunderstood. Consider the era back then when racism was rampant. The counsel was given that the word needed to be given to the white persons as well as the black person. And since slavery was also horrible, there will be mistrust between blacks and whites, which would have been a stumbling block to a person's salvation. That's the reason for the separate congregations back then, but it should not be so now because there's no Jew or Gentile with God. No black.
One would read that statement and, right off the bat, people don't understand it. That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense, but it doesn't for the Mr. Myles.
Black nor white, nor greater or lesser human being, for he made us all. Psalm 100. We just need to gain the right understanding of the writings, and God can give us such. Well, at least you rightly recognized, Anthony, that the fact that there's a black conference and a white conference does not mirror the kingdom of God. That there shouldn't be such a thing, and the fact that there still is today should send up at least somewhat of a red flag.
Let's just talk about that just a little bit. It still exists today. Why does it exist? Who wants it? Is it white people? Or is it black people? And he's not explaining this. Who want this separation? Is it white people or is it black people? Is it white people that say, yo, we don't want you in our conference? Yeah, who is doing that? Is it white people or is it black? Who is asking for it? Is it white people or is it black people? He didn't explain that. He just said, oh, you see, you got two conferences, you got white and black there. There's a separation. It's black people that want this separation, not white people. There's black people that want this separation. Yeah, they can't stand. They go, oh, you want to blame the white people for that? No, white people doesn't have anything to do with these two conferences. That's black people. Black people want this. It should just be one conference. But you see, black people doesn't want that. Oh, because they think in their mind, oh, this guy is looking at me funny. Oh, he's thinking about me funny. Oh, I can feel it. They're still in slavery. In their mind, they're still there. That's not white people's fault. So you can't put the blame where it isn't. That's what I would like to say. And I'm a black person, just so you know. I ain't white. Common sense tell you that. Normal living will tell you that. You just go and sit there. You see where it's coming from. So you have no idea what you're talking about.
But EJ, what are your thoughts on, if you carefully read the statement, that's not what she's saying. Now, he doesn't get into the specific defenses here like some of these other commenters were, but what are your thoughts on that? Are we not reading things carefully?
Of course, we read them carefully, and every Seventh-day Adventist before 1947 into 1951 who read Ellen White's statements carefully.
And notice the time, 1947 to 1951. What was happening around that time? What was happening around that time? The church was beginning to have a shift, right? This is where we became Trinitarian around this time. This is when things was moving around that should not be moving around. Let's listen to them.
They unanimously understood them the same way as well. And so when she first made the statement in 1864, and then coming down through to 1931 was the first time they tried to reinterpret it. An Adventist by the name of George McCreary Price, he first suggested, in order to make it more palatable and agree with what science was understanding better than that animals and humans can't procreate, he was the one who first suggested that they add amalgamation of man and of beast as a means of making it what this guy is saying here. And so again, it is not us who is misreading the statement or not reading carefully. Everyone unanimously for the 83 years of the existence of this thing, from 1864 through to 1947, 1951, it was unanimous. It meant man and humans interbred and produced certain races of people.
Yeah.
That's how it was universally understood in Adventism.
That's not true. That's not the way it was taught, and it definitely was not the way it was understood. That's the way it came to be understood. It's a different thing. That's the way it's understood today. That's not the way it was. We'll get to those statements in just a minute, but let me just give you a little prelude. You see, when she said that the amalgamation of man and beast, it meant man and beast. It meant exactly what it says. And we're gonna go into the dictionary that they used back in the day, and we'll see exactly what amalgamation means. Because you're gonna see that they're gonna twist the meaning of the word in just a little bit. But I ain't gonna get ahead of it. I'm gonna let them spout it before I actually attack it, just so you know what I'm actually hitting.
Universally defended until science was refuting them and showing otherwise. Then they started to try what is happening now. And so we have read it carefully, all of them. It is them who haven't properly read it and what is parroting the reinterpretation, which we get into as we go into the program.
Well, that's what I think is so funny. And folks, we're going to look at these quotes tonight, so you're going to see we're not just talking out the sides of our neck here. But the irony of...
And I apologize if you see that Myles is speaking a little faster. I have to speed up just a little bit, just so I can get through it a little faster. Because this is going to be, like 2 hours and a half long, brother and sister. And I'm going to go through the whole thing. That's right. I'm going to go through the whole thing here with you, brother and sister. I'm going to debunk everything that they say. Gosh, these people it's just horrible, man. And we'll get them when we get there.
This comment. It's like, Anthony, then everyone in your denomination for like 90 years didn't know how to read it, apparently. They were all clueless. They were all lost. Your whole denomination was lost on this topic until the 50s. Usefulness, I don't know. But that was this person's YouTube name. Again, rather long comments here, has a couple of them. He says, this is the worst interpretation of her writing, and deliberately so. She wrote the amalgamation of man and beast, not the amalgamation of man with beast. This guy's been reading the ADL article or F.D. Nichols' book. Two entirely very, very different things. Learn to read English properly. A bit of a challenge for Americans. How so many get this wrong, I'll never know. So many think that the giants came from the union of fallen angels and humans, in direct contradiction of the Bible. Christ said that there was no marriage between angels and heaven, and yet somehow they could down here. Really? Why did they stop? None of this had to do with my video, by the way. Why aren't they still doing it now and giants abound? It's because the sons of God were those that worshiped God, and the daughters of the sons of men were those who did not worship God. Genesis 6:2 has no connection with Genesis 6:4. Ever notice how the animals went into the ark, the clean animals by 7 and the unclean by 2s? If God had created everything and declared it very good, how is now one lot of animals clean and one lot unclean? Through the amalgamation of beast with beast, so this is getting into what you were saying, EJ, about the rewording of the phrase, that's why they're unclean and still are today. A lot of comments here not backed up with anything but rumor. how this woman, who was the starter of Oakwood University for African Americans in Huntsville, Alabama, in a time, 1896, and space where racism was and probably still is rife, is lambasted as a racist is beyond me. You're no scholar, no theologian, just another virtue signaler, trying to go through everything with your virtue signaling glasses with a supposed Christian tint. Try and do better and be the man Christ wants you to be. Misrepresenting something is also known as bearing false witness, the 9th of the 10 commandments. The irony of this comment. The irony. We're not going to get into a ton of the details here because we're going to save that for when we get into the presentation. But folks, I want you to see the sort of defenses that you're going to hear when you bring this up. They're all going to say these same things. You're reading it wrong. It didn't say hybrid humans. That's specifically why I didn't even mention it in the video. I only covered one aspect of the claim, which there are multiple aspects as we.
But you see, you didn't say hybrid really, but that you paint the picture. That's exactly what you meant. That's exactly what you meant when you said those words. No, but I didn't say it. I just make everybody else understand that that's what I meant. But I didn't say it. See, it's something to say that it's a plausible deniability. Right? That's what you call that. I didn't say it. I just meant it, but I didn't say it. You can't say I said that. Yeah, but you tell me what you meant if you didn't mean that. You see, people have understanding. People can read in between the lines in most cases. You don't have to say something for someone to understand what you're saying.
We will see tonight. I only covered one of them because I wanted to see if Adventists would even listen. They all commented on there. She's not talking about a hybrid human. Well, I didn't even bring that aspect up in the video. I talked about race mixing because, as you're going to see, it's also miscegenation that she was talking about, not just man with animals creating other breeds. I don't know, fellas. I'm one of these mixed race amalgamations, if you will. So maybe I'm just not smart enough to grasp what's being said. Maybe that's the issue. Then NBA 2K, 2King 670, whatever, NBA said, so when she said amalgamation, she didn't mean mixing this ethnicity with that ethnicity. Stretch. The other so-called supporting statements you pulled from another book has nothing to do with what she said about the antediluvian people. Okay, halt. Folks, in that video, the point that I was making in quoting from separate works, yes, I'm aware that the amalgamation statements were not connected directly to what the statements that she said regarding race mixing or not marrying during antebellum slavery days. Okay. That wasn't the point. The point was to show in that specific video, all this stuff is supposedly attributed to God. God is the one that said this. So at one time, if you go against God's word, that's a sin. If God tells you to do something and you go against it, that is a sin. So if God said for a specific period of time, black people can't marry white people, and you went against that, you were sinning. That's the point. Saying, oh, that was only for back then. Oh, okay. Yeah, that really helps. That's kind of like when they say, which we'll see with Genesis 6, is, oh, well.
Something like when God said, you cannot marry people that's not of your race. Something like that. When he told the Jews, right? So you can't go out and marry other people. If Jews was to go out and marry other people today, that's a sin because God said it, right? If you was to go and marry a Jewish woman, that's a sin too because God said not to do it, right? See, these people have no common sense. That's what it really comes down to when you really come down to it. No common sense whatsoever. They just get there and spout nonsense, and then they spout some more. And then they pat themselves on the back, and then they do it over.
Well, I know it was race mixing back then, but it was only back then. It was only when they were race mixing back then, as if that somehow compartmentalizes God's racism. That makes it better. He continues. That's a different subject. But when she said amalgamation of man and beast, she's not talking about mixing man and beast to create hybrid man-beast creatures. She was referencing the sons of God marrying the daughters of men. So this is the other nickel argument here. That is the sons of Seth and the daughters of Cain. And the Bible does in fact state that in Genesis 6, right before the flood, and beasts intermingling with different beasts, like ligers. So God.
Well, I want to interject here as well. What he is saying there is actually true. Because the NBA, I'm sorry, but I can't agree with what you're saying. She said what she said. And she meant, it's pretty clear about what she said. We'll get to the statements in just a bit. But it's pretty clear about what she said. The thing is, the problem that we have today is we start to try to sugarcoat things. No, but she really didn't mean. No, she meant what she said. It ain't difficult to understand what she said. She meant what she said. We try to make excuses. I have to side with Myles on this one. And the other two race baiters, they have to side with them because she meant what she said, and he understands what she said. He is misconstruing it, even though he understands it. I'm going to put that straight.
God flooded the earth because of lions and tigers mating. Something he would have had to have created them to have an innate ability to do amongst their kind. That frustrated him, and so he flooded the earth because of ligers. This is lazy research or biased with a false premise already. When she talked about how white people should not marry black people, we have to remember this was during the time of extreme racism and slavery. Remember, folks, these words that she said, barricaded by "Thus saith the Lord," God speaking through clay, never wrote a single sentence of heresy. They're not her own words. It's not merely the opinion of Sister White. You go against...
Let me just interject here, Bell. According to Myles, let's just play it out the way Myles is saying that it should have played out. Because he'll get to that in just a minute, too. Because he's saying that what Ellen White should have done back when we had segregation, back when we had slavery, back when people were getting lynched and getting killed, what Ellen White should have done was tell the black man and tell the black woman, hey, you know something? You are the same. That's right. You're the same. You go marry that white woman. Ain't nothing going to happen. Yeah, you go marry that black man. Ain't nothing going to happen. Yeah, you have rights. Just imagine if they would have a fit. You hear what she said? I mean, that was like giving them the death sentence. She didn't have any heart. You can't please these people. What should Ellen White should have done? She had told the black man and the black woman, yeah, you go ahead so intermingle with these white people. Okay, ain't nothing gonna happen. Yeah, God tell me that that's what you're supposed to do. Then he would say, oh, you see what God tell her to do that. God tell her to tell this black man to go marry that black woman. Now he's hanging on a tree. God tell her to do that. Could you imagine? God, he didn't see that happen. He didn't see that happening. There's nothing you can do for these people. They're beyond help. If she was to say no, it's wrong. If she was to say yes, it's wrong. If she did make up the mind, oh my goodness, she don't know what she's doing. She could make up her mind. No, brothers and sisters. No one agrees with slavery. No one agrees with racism. No one agrees with that. But common sense will tell you what you could and could not do in that time. She did need God to tell her, this shouldn't happen. It wasn't the time. You think if she was alive today, she would be saying the same thing? No. No, she wouldn't. But you can't get up there and blame Ellen White for what she said, because she said that out of love for black people. They could have been killed for that. Yeah. CMB. Yeah, Pastor Thunder. If you was back in Ellen G. White days and Myles was there, your good friend would have tell you, he would have give you that good advice. Go to marry that white woman. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Yeah. Ain't nothing gonna happen. They ain't better than you. You don't worry about that. Ain't nothing gonna happen. Go so marry her. Go so parade her around town too. Yeah, go so show her off. That's your friend. That's what he would tell you. Or would he tell you the same thing Ellen White told you? Man, you guys are just have no sense, man. No sense. No conscience. Myles now. He wouldn't have any problem with them stringing you up.
It's her words, you're going against the Spirit of God. That's what's in focus. Notice none of these commenters are actually, oh no, that was just wise counsel she was giving. No. This is supposed to be God speaking. She was trying to protect people, essentially those kids who were born as mixed race, because it can cause an outrage amongst the people who were already racist. For a racist white man to see a mixed race baby could be troublesome, and for one to be born mixed race at the time could be confusing.
Oh, who would have thought that? Who would have thought that? Myles said, no, I wouldn't be troublesome. It'd be just as normal as it is today. Wouldn't see anything wrong with that. A child is not in danger neither. Nah. You see anything wrong with that? But I said they were living in a different time. What Ellen G. White was going to get out there and tell them, oh, you can't touch this person? Man. But this, brothers and sisters, is what happened when you leave Adventism. This is what you're left with. This is the reasoning power that you're left with. Tell me if this is not evil.
To them too, as to why so much hate from a race that he or she is half of, those times were different from our times now. Any comments on that, fellas, before moving to our, we have our last person, and then I'm going to bring out actually a real winner of some comments from another gentleman, and then we're going to transition to CMB. Any thoughts on this, folks?
I think your question or your challenge or comment anyway at the beginning was right. We're going to find out who's done their homework and who hasn't.
Yeah, I'd say. EJ, any thoughts?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing. They never miss. They always approach you or enter a conversation, kicking down the door and just a bull in a china shop
Yeah.
and throwing out all of these accusations and straw man and ad hom and the whole works until you start to unearth the contextual and historical factors, and then they have to sort of humble pies and try to backpedal and do all kinds of spins and cognitive dissonance fuse to still try to maintain a sense of coherence. And so again, when we systematically and historically go through the facts, persons will see who's just jumping to hasty conclusions and accusations without properly studying the issue out and investigating the facts.
Yep.
Myles, real quick.
Go ahead.
Just to address one of the questions that was on there, how could the founder of Oakwood College in Huntsville be racist? The same way the presidents of Oakwood College can be racist. From back in the day, they didn't have. I think the first black president of my history serves me correctly, as I am an Oakwood grad. If it serves me correctly, the first black president I believe was J.L. Moran, and before that, there were white presidents of the colleges and universities, and black students and staff couldn't come into the office in certain instances. So I don't know. Is that possible? You tell me.
There's no way to prove any of this. They basically out there and they started spouting things that they heard. Someone said this, someone said that, and this couldn't happen back then. Did you experience that? I didn't really experience it, but that someone told me that it happened. Way back then. I believe them. I mean, you don't have any doubts now. No, there were white people back then. I don't have no doubts in that. But who cares, right? Who cares? They don't care. That's for sure.
We'll have to figure that out.
And not just that, but that's irrelevant because you can look systematically, which one guy we're going to look at here in a moment, he's going to harp on, have you read Sister White systematically on this? Meaning looking at all of what she says on the topic. Folks, I'll challenge you tonight, which we're going to look at some of it. I challenge you, do a systematic study on what she said in regards to other races of people and their learning capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Please do. Yeah.
And why you'd want to set up just because you set up a university in a predominantly, colored area doesn't automatically mean therefore you don't have you could want to go in there and be like, oh man, these primitive people, we need to educate them and we need to get them, you can have all sorts of motives. That doesn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. So now Jason,
Myles,
go ahead.
If I may harp on that was exactly the motive why it was founded. Ellen White helped found a lot of Bible schools and training programs in the South, especially Mississippi, for the very reason, because she supported segregation and wrote extensively on it that they should be segregated. And even in those black churches and institutions, because of her view that blacks were spiritually, morally, intellectually, etc., inferior to whites, that whites should be chosen as leaders in all of those instances, in all of those institutions. In fact, it is because of Ellen White's deep-seated racist statements that there exists racial segregation and black and white SDA conferences in North America. And so that is not something far-fetched. Ellen White was very altruistic as whites were gaining freedoms and liberties, and she saw them basically as, if I may put it this way, cash cows, people who can fund the system and try to reach them to advance Adventism. She makes that clear over and over in how she approached it.
Man, that's so disingenuous. Maybe. Yeah, I'm just putting something out there. Because I'm pretty sure they're going to bring out the texts that they're going to refer to. I don't know if they bring out this one, but they bring out a bunch of texts there that they're taken out of context, and we'll go through them with them, right? The reason why something like that would happen, let's just say it did happen, right? Let's just say it did happen. Reason something like that would happen is probably, I'm just saying, probably because black people, there wasn't many educated black people. Maybe that's the reason. These people are just coming out of slavery. Maybe that's the reason. And maybe, let's say something else, there was still racism going around. People were still, the moment that the slave was free, racism didn't just, okay, slaves are free, we're going to forget about it. Everybody's going to change. It didn't happen like that. It took time. White children, when they go to school, say, oh my, we have a black teacher here that's teaching us. We have a black teacher. Things didn't change automatically. According to you, you think that they should have changed. Nothing changes automatically. Nothing, no matter what you do, what it is that you're talking about. People have been living like that all their lives. There was a state of being. And all of a sudden it's change. It needs time for acceptance. Needs time. What should we have just closed down the schools? No. Know what we're gonna do? We're gonna put all black pastors here. We're gonna put all black teachers. We're gonna get rid of all the white people. What was gonna happen to the schools? You see, they didn't think this way. God designed the school for the school to be around. According to these race betas, they think that, just close the schools. That would make us more happy. He came out of an Adventist school, sound like. Yeah, I would have just went to a different school, right? We should have just closed the entire Adventist church. The church was growing during that time. The church was still in its infancy. Why would you put a knife to your throat knowing what's going to happen? You don't think that might have something to do with it? I'm just saying. See, these people are totally disconnected from reality. Totally disconnected from reality. They have no sense, my sisters. It's a sad state to see that they're still where they were.
And so that is not something far-fetched.
No. And we're going to get into that tonight, so people will see for themselves.
And the receipts are here, trust.
Yep. So then Jason Thomas, he commented a bunch on the video. We're going to look at a couple of them here. He said, he's responding to me here because I asked him, I said, show us in the Bible. Well, he says, you wrote, show us that race mixing was the chief of sins that caused God to flood the earth. That was my question, because that was my question in the video, because that was the point of the video. God supposedly flooded the earth because certain races of people had the image of God defaced in them. Show me this from Scripture. So then he says, the Bible says, in quotes, like the person previously brought up, Genesis 6, 1-7. When man began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh, for his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and those afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. They were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. Sorry, I copied and pasted this from one of those sites that has that puts the little letters for the annotations and the footnotes. Forgot to get them all out. So the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. Fellas, where in there does it say anything about race mixing?
Nowhere.
It's just the assumption, as you're going to see in the next slide, where I highlighted his emphasis to, it's what he emphasized. The race mixing that was being referred to was the sons of God and the daughters of men. There we go. There's the F.D. Nickel argument. You can see that this combination caused evilness. There is a principle of God that says to not be unequally yoked. There again is the F.D. Nickel argument. It was being unequally yoked. God flooded the world because of the results that came from this mixing.
Now, I have to agree. It is that it's being unequally yoked, but that's not exactly what she was talking about. She's speaking about that as well, but she's also speaking what they're speaking about.